being around other people that are there to support, to be there with you.
To be surrounded by people that I can interact with, communicate with, share my thoughts with.
I guess what makes me feel connected is probably like exercise, since it's like an anchor. So no matter where you are, like if it's a new place, new anything, like exercise makes you just feel connected, like somewhere, like common space basically.
For me, connection is all about family. It's about being known and having a group of people who know you at your best and at your worst and love you all the same.
I think that it means to have that social interaction and also have that same emotional connection with someone.
I think the internet's probably a really big part of feeling connected for me. It helps me stay in contact with my family and my friends back home.
I think it's the feeling of being able to talk openly and listen openly to someone.
Fantastic. Do feel free to come in if you're at the back and join us, and we're going to kick off right now. I want to speak tonight about how to find your home, and we've all hopefully experienced growing up in our home, and it may be one place, it may be that's your home, or it may be you grew up in a number of different places, but to some extent home is more of a feeling than a place. It can be anywhere. You can be with friends, you can be with one other person, you can even be on your own, but home is a deep sense that you belong, that this is where you are meant to be. It's almost like when you're at home, you can think out loud and you know it's going to be okay. It's where you feel completely known and yet fully loved. And I think we all kind of search for that deep sense of belonging. It can be hard to find. As I said, I grew up in quite a rough area, and I went to a very rough school. It's what these days you would call a failing school, largely because it failed, and they knocked it down. And it was quite a rough school, and it was a difficult school. And at that school, it was quite tricky because to be in the in crowd, you had to be quite violent. And I wasn't really, I can handle myself, but I wasn't really cut out to mix with some of those guys. And the other challenge was I quite liked studying. Like I liked Shakespeare. I thought Dickens was a good read. So it's a little bit tricky. You never kind of feel like you completely fit in. And then I went to university. As I said, I was rejected by this university cruelly. So I had to go and read law at a second-class institution just west of London, in Oxfordshire, and so the second I turned up, it was very different from the context in which I had been raised, because in the first weekend, everyone was like, "Are you coming to this black tie party?" And I'd never experienced the words black tie. And then someone said, "Isn't it white tie?" And I was like, I was just getting my head around black tie, and now you're talking about white tie. What is this crazy new world? And I was reminded of that this morning, so I woke up quite early. I went for a run around the city. It's quite high and quite low at the same time. There's a lot of hills around here. And I found myself outside Tesco's just as it opened at 7 o'clock in the morning with one other guy who might be one of you. Sorry for showing this if it is one of you. And he was in full black tie at 7 a.m. in the morning. I thought, you've either got a busy day or you've had a very difficult night. But I think he had a bit of red wine stain. He was trying to find some orange juice. So I think he was trying to kind of cure whatever he was feeling. So I was thinking, just a flash from the past. I was thinking, I remember those days. And it's you're very conscious in that context of feeling a bit like an outsider. I had great friends, but I just felt, maybe this isn't quite where I fit. And then I went to work as a barrister, and in my interview to be a barrister, I walked in, and there was a butler. And I was like, I have really misjudged this. It was like, something out of James Bond. He's like, "Hello, can I get you a cup of tea?" Like dressed in tails as a butler. And I was like, I am not used to this. So it feels like the whole time I was thinking, do I fit in? Am I going to fit in? And it can be hard to feel like you really belong. And part of the reason is even when you're with people you instantly connect with, and you feel like you share a bit of their story, there's common ground, you get on with them, they understand you, sometimes there's a fear that if they really knew me, if they really knew everything I thought and everything I've done, who I really am, they might actually not want to be around me. Maybe they just like this version of me that I project out into the world. And so there's two ways that people tend to respond and tend to try and find this belonging. One is to kind of rebel and to go off and to leave the kind of environment in which you grew up and maybe all the values in which you grew up and go and find your own tribe, find your own crew, find your own people, and just kind of desperately try and find a new place in which we might find belonging. And that sometimes works. And the other is to say, well, I'm just going to ignore the parts of me that don't quite fit. I'm just going to try really hard to conform to the standards of the group I'm in. And then maybe eventually, if I hide enough the parts of me that I'm ashamed about, maybe I'll fit in. And in some ways, both can be a challenge long term, because the first, you're outwardly rebelling. But inwardly, you're still conforming. You're trying to fit in with the new group of people you find and fit in with their values. The second, you're outwardly conforming. But inwardly, you're rebelling. You know deep down that you don't fit. And neither of those feel like we belong. We need to find a place somewhere we can be fully known and completely loved. We need to find our true home. And Jesus tells a story in Luke 15, and Pat started talking about this tonight, which is so helpful. And I'm just going to keep talking about it now, because it's such an important part of the Bible for when we're thinking about this whole idea of home. And Jesus said this. And you might remember last night, we looked at Jesus was surrounded by tax collectors, people who were despised by the community and the culture, and sinners, those whose lives were outwardly immoral. They were the people who gathered together and crowded around Jesus and listened to him because they were captivated by what he had to say and how he lived and what he was doing. And it was the religious leaders and the people who thought they had their lives all together and were sorted. They were the ones who were getting frustrated at the fact that Jesus was speaking to the people who were on the outside. And so Jesus told the story we looked at last night about the sheep, and then he told this story. Jesus continued. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, this is on page 51. You got these little books? Amazing. It's my gift to you. I mean, I didn't buy them, but it's my gift to you. Take them away, sell them on eBay, whatever. Or read them. That's even better. You can read this whole thing in an hour and 30 minutes, and it will change your life. So there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided the property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had and set off for a distant country and squandered his wealth in wild living. After he'd spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to be a citizen of that country, who sent him to the fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. It's like eating grass, but a little bit different. But when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I'll set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger,'" Bible according to Beyonce, "'and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the elder son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The elder brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never even gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours.' But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." You might have heard of this story. It's often called the parable of the prodigal son. Anyone here study maths? A couple. How many sons are in this story? 2. See, it's not obvious to those of us who don't study maths. But there's 2 sons, not 1. There are 3 key characters, and at the center of it is the father. And the younger son wants to leave the family and go off and explore and experiment, just find some kind of satisfaction. And most of all, he wants to get away from his father. He says, "Father, give me my share of the estate." Now, English language doesn't quite convey the force of this sentence. I want you to imagine that when you go home at like Easter, You're a bit fed up. You're a bit fed up of studying. You're a bit fed up of everything. You're fed up with your family. You're fed up with your parents' expectations. You're done with trying to seek everyone's approval. You think, right, I'm going to Ibiza or Mauritius or Zanzibar. I'm just done. Everyone can go whistle. I'm fed up. And so you go up to your parents and you say, I want my share of everything you own. Like everything, like not just cash and your bank accounts. I want all your share portfolios. I want half your house. I want your car. I want half the dog. I want everything, and I want it now. What you're saying to them basically is, I'm fed up of waiting for you to die. So just give me what I get when you die now. I wish you were dead. And has anyone here ever had that conversation with their folks? No? Okay. Some of you are like, can you do that? Like that would be a game changer. And you can't. Please don't have. They don't say there was this guy who said I should ask you. But it's shocking, isn't it? That's shocking for us in our culture, but in this culture, hugely shocking. And the father would be expected to be outraged and angry, and discipline his son and put him back in his place. But even more shocking, the father does it. He divides the property between them and gives to his son the freedom to reject him. And so the younger son gets all the money together and sets off and spends it freely. And I've done that. When I came to uni, I was desperate to kind of win that sense of belonging. I was like, I'm just going to get in with the in crowd, go to all the parties, just blitz everything. Uninhibited living, just absolutely went for it. And just for weeks and weeks and weeks, just any party, needed no encouragement, just out all the time. And it was a crazy few weeks. And then I met this girl, she was beautiful. We went on the first date, I picked her up. I was walking her to this bar, and on the way I thought, I need to stop and get some cash. So I kind of went to the cash machine. I said, just going to get some cash. She's like, okay. Really beautiful she was. And I put my card in the cash point. It went beep, 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 and spat it out again. That's not a good sign. Put it again. It's like beep, 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 beep. Put it out again. And then I suddenly realized I had managed in 4 weeks to spend my entire student loan and exhaust all of my overdraft. I mean, that is like uni goals. I mean, that's quite a difficult thing to do. You have to try really hard to do that. I mean, that's like 4 weeks in, I'm out. And so I was like, she's like, is there a problem? I was like, no, there's no problem. Because you can't say there's a problem. I mean, I didn't know how the date was going to go, but she doesn't want to like end up, committing to a relationship with someone who can't provide for her family, buy her a hat. I just thought it's not a good foot on which to start. You can't say, can you spare me some money? I'm really poor. So we're kind of walking through the city, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I was thinking, I need a help. And I suddenly thought, phone a friend. So I reached into my pocket, and while we were walking along, I managed to text my mate Phil, on date, need cash, and then the name of the street and the bar name. Okay, that's all I sent him, just a text like that. He was in bed asleep, 7 p.m. in the evening on a Friday night. And his phone went, and he looked at it, and he amazingly, I'm an amazing friend, he looked at it and thought, I know exactly what Stephen needs. He grabbed his wallet, he jumped on a bike, and if you had been in that city on that night, you would have seen me walking down the road with this beautiful woman, and you would have seen my friend coming along at about 50 miles an hour, riding like his life depended on it, on a bike, in his pajamas, come up to me, not say a word, shove money subtly into my hand, like we were shaking hands, and he put money in my hand, gave me a wink, and rode off again. It looked like a drug deal. And she was like, is this okay? And I was like, yeah, it's fine, just saying hi, And he saved my life. I mean, that is a friend. That's a crazy friend. I'm very grateful he did, because 22 years later, I'm still married to that young woman, and we've now got 4 kids. But I realized that night, I woke up next day, I went into the bank, I was like, what's going on? Your bank isn't working. He's like, do you want me to print you out how much you spent? He printed it out. Like, it all came out, and I looked at it and I thought, I need to wake up. I've been messing this up completely. I need to come to my senses. And the younger son needed to come to his senses. And he does. He's wasted everything. And so he thinks of a plan to survive, to go back, to persuade his dad to give him a job. And he's not actually focusing on fixing or repairing the relationship. He just wants to solve his problem. He wants to find a way to survive. So he prepares this little speech. Any of you have ever done this? If your mum and dad are upset with you, or you've fallen out with friends, you prepare a little speech in advance. Like, this is how it will go. And so he prepares a little speech. And he says, he will say, I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants. It's a good little speech. So he comes up with his little speech, goes back to persuade his father to give him a job, and he's probably thinking, eventually I might be able to make my way back into the family. Heads back home. But then this extraordinary thing happens. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion and ran to him. Some people say the offense that the son had caused would have been so great that coming back to the community, there was a risk of community vengeance, that other people in the community would defend the honor of the father and defend the honor of the community and attack him before he even came back to the house. The father runs to him. He picks up his robe. He exposes his legs. Shameful in that culture. The father is willing to incur the loss of honor, the shame of coming close to his son because he's so desperate to repair the relationship. And he throws his arms around him. The father's happy to incur the cost, happy to, cost his honor in the community, to welcome the son home. And the son tries to start his little speech, but he's so impacted by the father's love and grace that he kind of can't quite get it out. I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, get him the best robe, get him a ring, restores him, gives him the ring, the sign of sonship. And then they celebrate with a fattened calf. And this is so rare, so expensive, so big that you'd invite the whole community. It's like the father isn't just happy repairing the relationship. He wants everyone in the village to know the son is back and we're okay. It's extraordinary. For this son of mine was dead and he's alive again. He was lost and is found. The relationship which was broken is restored. And you might be here and you might have tried that first option and rebelled and gone off. And you might have tried any number of things, driven yourself to experiment and try different things. And everyone else would look at you and say, you've got it all together. You're the life and soul of the party. You've got a great friendship network. But deep down in you, there's a sadness. Because you realize actually already that these things, whether it's success or relationships or whatever, they're not going to satisfy you in the way that you thought they might. And I know exactly how that feels. I wanted independence. I wanted to live life on my terms. I thought that would get me satisfaction. Actually, it depleted my satisfaction. It was diminishing returns. Another party, another this, another that. It didn't actually help. And I was longing for the deep satisfaction of being completely known and completely loved. And on the cross, Jesus bore the cost, enabled the rescue, enabled the relationship to be restored so we could be welcomed home. And the thing I found amazing is, you might have noticed it in what Cara said, is that I thought by entering into a relationship with Jesus, that was when all the fun stopped. It's like, I've got to do it because Jesus is the Son of God, and I'm persuaded by all the things that he said, and I do want this sense of being completely known and completely loved, but probably all the fun stops now. What I found is, when I had that security of knowing I belonged, that I was in relationship with Jesus, I'm so glad they turned it off. I was about to die. Honestly, it's so nice being warm, and I'll probably be cold in about 10 minutes, but right now I'm thinking, I don't need to go for a run tomorrow. I'm like losing body weight as I speak. It's like, but thank you guys, so helpful. And you're kind of like, Jesus bore the cost to say that you might be restored. And you think, oh, I'm giving it all up. And actually, I found that when I had my life rooted on that security, when I knew I really belonged, it gave me a greater freedom to take risks. Suddenly, I wasn't fearful of being a failure anymore because I knew that there was one who was prepared to appear to be a failure to all the world in order that he might win me. I wasn't fearful of being humiliated anymore because there was one who had gone higher than I might ever climb to rise, but made himself lower than I would ever fear to fall in order to win me. I wasn't fearful of rejection anymore because the most important opinion in the universe was favorably disposed towards me. It really shifted things. That gave me freedom to take risks, freedom to be creative, freedom to innovate, freedom to go places where in my own strength I'd never had the confidence to go. And it might be that you feel, yeah, I've been rebelling, but there's a moment for you to come back tonight, and we'll have an opportunity for that. But there's an older son in this story, and he's been there throughout. And he asks, what's going on, and refuses to go into the party. He's angry, and it's a massive deal. His father's thrown a huge banquet for the whole community, and he's just like standing outside, seething. So it's not just it's not just broken relationship between him and his father. He's humiliating his father in front of the whole village because he's saying, I don't want to come in. I don't want to be part of this party. He's making it really obvious to the whole community that there is fallout in the family, which is shameful in that culture. But the really surprising thing is that the father goes out to the elder son, makes himself vulnerable again, and pleads with him to go in. And the elder son answers, look, doesn't even address him as father. Look, all these years I've been slaving for you, and I've never disobeyed your order. And you're like, wait a minute, you guys have got a complicated relationship. You've been slaving for him? Like that implies like joyless service, obligation, resentment. He said, you never even gave me a young goat. Now, I don't know if you've ever got so angry in an argument. You all look too nice to have arguments. But sometimes you can get so angry in an argument, you say things which even as you speak them, you know aren't true. Anyone ever done that? Hands up. Oh, wow, you guys know how to argue. Anyone never done that? Hands up. Oh, yeah, honest. And, or maybe that's, no, I'm joking. And anyone hate putting their hands up in situations like this? A couple, okay. You say things which you know aren't true. I mean, look at the start of the story. The father took the property and divided it between them. The elder son got everything he could ever hope to get at the same time as the younger son. He's already got it all. And then he says, this son of yours squandered his property with prostitutes. You're like, what? How does he know? Was he there? It just says he squandered it on wild living. It doesn't say he was out there doing that. He's just so angry he can't even see straight. And the elder brother, in his own eyes, has done everything right. He's lived a moral life. He's done what's expected with him. He's worked hard. He's achieved. He's conformed. But he is blind to how he actually feels. And his resentment to his father comes out in harshness to his brother. Don't you have ever noticed that? If deep down you're unhappy with God, but you wouldn't even admit it to yourself, sometimes it comes out in harshness to those he shows mercy to. Like, why would you show mercy to that person? Why would you be kind to that person? They're not good. I'm good. And deep down you're saying, haven't I done enough? Haven't I shown you enough? He doesn't realize he's going through the motions of belonging without ever understanding deep down the Father's love for him. He's hiding his resentment. And if you do that, eventually it will spill out. And it's so sad because the Father doesn't want, he's not a taskmaster. He doesn't want a perfect servant. His love isn't conditional on perfect performance. Maybe that's how you related to your parents, or maybe that's how you thought you should relate to God. I've performed brilliantly. Now show me your forgiveness and your love. Maybe that feeling or that sense led you to walk away and reject faith years ago. Or it's made you resentful towards church or towards Christians or towards God. But the Father wants relationship. He pleads again, my son, you're always with me. You're with me. I care about you. But we had to rejoice because your brother who was lost is found. He's doing all he can to leave the door open for the son to come back. You're always with me. Everything I have is yours. You've got the whole thing. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours, he reminds him of yours, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. And then the story ends. Like the father leaves the door open and it's a cliffhanger. What's going to happen? Is the elder son going to come back into the party? Or is he going to walk away? And Jesus tells this to some religious leaders and people who think they've got their lives together and don't need God's help. And some people who are desperate for him because they know they've messed up. People who are a little bit like the younger son and people who are a little bit like the older son. And it ends on this cliffhanger. When you look at this story in the Middle East, in Middle Eastern culture, and most people read this and say there's two possibilities. The elder son either embraces the father and comes into the party, or the elder son is so angry at the father's generosity that he strikes him in his anger and rejects him. And Jesus told this story to religious leaders, and we know that Jesus was struck. He was punished. He was crucified by those he came to save. He bore our sins in his body on the tree. He took my sin. He took my shame so I could belong to God. And because of Jesus, you can be completely known to the bottom of your soul, all of the good, all that you push to the surface, all that you try and impress people with and make it feel like you belong so you can fit in with the in crowd or the people you hang out with. And all of the bad, all that you're ashamed of and you try and bury and hide because it might make you not quite fit in. He knows you to the bottom of your soul, and yet he loves you to the sky. Jesus is the most captivating person that I've ever encountered in my entire life. And when I was lost, he found me. When I was messed up, he didn't just come and slap me and say, you're an idiot. He kind of showed me grace and mercy. And when you know him, when you know that sense of belonging, it's like every aspect of your personality, your character, your gifting, your purpose, your calling springs to life in a whole new way. So how do we respond tonight? So you might be here and you might think, that's interesting, thanks for that, but to be honest, it's not for me. Thanks, but no thanks. And actually, I'm slightly annoyed. I came, the sweets were nice, but that's about it. And the person with the jewelry was nice, but everything else has not been that great. And if you feel that way, I just want to say I'm so sorry, and we'd love to compensate you for your time. Timmy, stand up if that's okay. Timmy, he doesn't know this yet, but Timmy has a hidden gift for poetry. And so if you feel shortchanged, he will compensate you. He'll write you an original poem that rhymes, perfect meter, it will scan, it will, and he'll write that for you tonight before you leave. And that's just our gift to you and Timmy's gift to you tonight. So that's the first option. Second option, you might be interested. You might be like, actually, it's a little bit interesting. Wasn't expecting Jesus to tell a story like this. Maybe there's more to Jesus than meets the eye. It doesn't quite fit with my perception of what church or faith or Christianity might be. And if that's how you're feeling, I'd really encourage you to talk some more. There's going to be like coffee, and there's probably loads of sweets and other stuff around. You just grab a coffee, chat to someone, chat to someone with one of the white jumpers. Everyone's wearing white jumpers, and just say, I'm interested. I want to talk more. Maybe you want to take away one of these. This is a gift to you. Just encourage you over the next couple of days. Take you an hour and a half. You can read the whole thing. The eyewitness account of what Jesus said and did. Go to the source and see. Who is this person? Do I like the look of him? Do I like the sound of him? Is he the kind of person I'd be interested in meeting? You might, though, relate very much to the younger son. You've been going your own way and trying to do it on your own. And actually, if you're honest, you wouldn't admit it to anyone, but deep down, it's been really tiring and you're feeling a bit weary. And it's almost like deep down, you put on a good show, but deep down, nothing quite seems to fit. And you long to know the peace of knowing you really belong. You would long to know that you could be completely known and completely loved. And it might be you want to take the first step tonight. Or it might be that there's a hardness in your heart tonight. And maybe you thought you had some kind of faith, but actually now sitting there thinking about it, you think, actually, I need to start all over again. And tonight, I want to take that step towards knowing God, not as someone I perform for, but as someone for whom everything I do comes out of his love for me, and my life is a response to that. So if you're happy, we're just going to pray now. It just might be a quiet moment for those people. So if you're happy, maybe just close your eyes, and we're just going to pray. And if that's you, if you would like to take that step tonight of just placing your trust in Jesus, taking the next step on your journey, then I'd really encourage you just to pray this prayer with me now. Very simple prayer. It's just thank you, sorry, please. It's a prayer placing your trust in Jesus and what he's done for you on the cross and beginning that relationship with him. Might be for the very first time in your life, or it might be it's been a difficult few years. You've wandered off, or you've become a bit hard-hearted, and you know this is a moment where you need to place your trust in him again. Lord Jesus, thank you that you came for me. Thank you that you love me. Thank you that when I come to know you, I will fully belong. I'll be completely known and completely loved. And I'm sorry for the things I've got wrong. I'm sorry for my sin, my mistakes, my failures, for going my own way. And I want to turn from those things and turn to you, Jesus, tonight. And please would you come into my life by your Spirit and lead me on into the life you've created me for. Amen.